Hello there. Hello everyone. Please send something in chat so I can see that everything is live and everything is fine. Today's stream is gonna be pretty interesting, I would say. We are going to make a very simple Figma plugin, and I'll try to explain like all the different things that go into building plugins and how can you get started in this in this area. Yeah, so please share and tune in. It's gonna be an interesting live stream, I would say. So here I have documentation. I have Figma open and ready to go to start working on our plugins. Hello everyone, please say something in chat if you're watching. And if you can hear me well, everything like that. So yeah, what I'm gonna build today is a plugin that selects all objects with the same name as the object that is currently selected. But first I will explain what even goes into building plugins, because it's a really interesting process. Yeah, you need some programming knowledge to do that. Figma says that you need some basic programming knowledge, and if you know how to make a website, then you will know how to make a plugin. I think it's somewhere here in the documentation. So I would say Figma is really easy to understand and to make plugins for. Their API is really simple, and it's really easy to program Figma plugins, even if you don't really know how to make a complete website. You just need to know the basics of programming and JavaScript programming language. This page here, plugin docs, it's in the video description right now. You can find the prerequisites here. It says some links here. Hello, Ellie. Nice to see you. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad that you like Master. So yeah, you can see some links here that they will allow you to get started in JavaScript programming. I will try to explain some basic concepts here, so you can continue with us. Like, I will explain everything as I do here. So we are gonna make a plugin that will select all objects with the same name on the current page. I will try to show all objects, all variables, everything that goes into building the plugin. I just opened the console. I don't know why. I need to first create a plugin. To do that, I will go to menu, plugins, development, new plugin. It allows me to choose the name of the plugin. I will type, oh yeah, I need to figure out what the name will be. There are edit functions here. Select all with the same properties. Okay, so I need to go to here. Oh, I'm not showing shortcuts. I'm sorry. I need to do this. Yeah. Yeah. Select all with same name. I think it's capitalized, all words, right? I forgot. Okay, I think it's like this. Select all with same name. Name is from the capital letter. Okay. Empty, I will start with an empty plugin template without any template actually, yeah, so it will just give me the manifest file and the other files that I need. The JavaScript file. Where is it? Plugins. Yes, here. Select all with same name. I save the plugin to a folder, and you can see it here now in Finder. I have it. Select all with same name. It created this folder. This folder contains two files, manifest.json and code.js. Oops. Oh, yeah, good. So manifest.json is a file that just tells Figma how to run your plugin, what the plugin ID is, what the plugin name is, what version of the API you are using. Right now there is only one version, 1.0.0, there are no other versions. And the main file is the file which contains the code for your plugin. It's the code.js file by default. I can rename it if necessary, and but I will not do it. So code.js. Code.js is basically the JavaScript file where all your code lives. And when Figma launches the plugin, when the user launches the plugins here, development, select all with same name. I can see it now here in the development menu in plugins. When I launch it, nothing happens because all it does is just automatically closes the plugin with this line. I made the UI a little bit larger. Nice. So you can call the plugin, and you can use Option Command P to call it again. Again, it will do nothing. But if we open console, you can do it by going to Plugins, Development, Open Console. It opens here, so I just use a shortcut Option Command I to open it as a window. It's a bit quicker this way. So now we have this console here, and as you can see, Figma tells us clearing and silencing console log from Figma, and then restoring console log functionality from Figma. It does this just so all the code that you run can write something in the console, and Figma will not interfere with it. So these two lines, basically, they mean that this line means that the plugin has started, and this line means that the plugin has finished working. So now let's open our code and finally start writing something here. To select all objects with the same name, first we need to find the name of a currently selected object, right? So I'll create a rectangle here, actually a bunch of rectangles. No, wait. I'll copy it here and do it this way. So I'll rename them all to rect. That will be a bit confusing, so I'll call them rectangle. You will see why later. So I'll open my JavaScript file and I can start editing it, and Figma will automatically, when you launch it again, Figma will do all the changes that you made to this file. So in this file, you can write code for your plugin. How do you know what code to write? First, you need to know some basic JavaScript concepts, such as variables, variables. You probably want to know how to work with functions. You will likely need to learn how to work with arrays. Hi Alessia, nice to see you here. Hope you are enjoying the stream. You will also need to know a bit about JavaScript objects and how the syntax around them works, how to create an object, how to access properties on an object. Properties are basically variables or functions that are stored in one object. An object is just a collection of these things, yeah. It can contain other objects inside of it too. So also you will need to learn about some basic things like loops and conditions. Loops and conditions, yeah. So these are the basic things which are necessary to make Figma plugins. You don't need stuff like manipulating DOM, which is a lot of tutorials online teach you to do. They tell you how to make objects in HTML interactive. You don't really need this to make Figma plugins. You only need to know these basic things. You also don't need to know jQuery. I will write this like this. Yeah, so you don't need to know jQuery. I saw that a lot of tutorials online teach you how to use jQuery. It's a library which allows you to easier access HTML things, to work with them, so you don't really need it to make plugins, and you don't even need it to work with websites. It's a bit outdated, I think. But some people still use it, it's fine if you find it useful. So yeah, these are the basic things. Now what's happening here? Figma.close plugin and brackets. What does this line mean? What does it even do? So I already said that this line closes the plugin. If I don't write this line, the plugin will, I just saved the file, the plugin will run constantly without stopping. It says running select all with the same name, and Figma doesn't, the plugin doesn't do anything and it doesn't stop. It needs to close manually. So you need to do this line at the end of every plugin execution. What Figma is? Figma is an object which stores some properties inside of it, which you can access to manipulate objects inside Figma. So Figma is this kind of object, and close plugin is one of its properties. It's a function. Functions are called with brackets. You can pass some parameters inside. Actually, let's do it now. This function close plugin, if I open the docs and I find this function here, close plugin, functions are called functions or methods, also another name for the same term basically. So yeah, here at the top you can see that close plugin closes the plugin. You should always call this function once your plugin is done running. And here's the definition. Message question mark. What does this mean? And string. It means that you can pass a parameter inside of this function. This parameter is called message, and it's optional, so you can see the question mark here. And the type of this parameter is string, which is just a word or several words. So I can pass a string here. A string is created with singular or double quotes. And you can type here objects selected after the plugin stopped running. Now let's go back to Figma, launch the plugin again, and we can see the small notification here, which says what we wrote here. We need double quotes or single quotes to make sure that it's a string. If we don't write it, it will be some nonsense. Oops, I didn't save it. The plugin will show that you've made a syntax error because objects is not something that doesn't even exist in JavaScript, and selected. These are not words that JavaScript can understand, but if you wrap it in quotes, it will know that this is a string and this is just text that it needs to display. Now, let's continue working on our plugin. What we need next? We need to find the name of the currently selected object to select all other objects like it. We can do this by going to the documents, to the documentation of Figma plugins, and finding name. What is a name? Name is a name of an object. So everything in the file, every object in the file has a name, and you can change this name. It's a string. It has string value. Yeah, right. So how do we find the name of an object? That's the tricky part. We need to somehow find the selected object first, and then we need to find the name of this object. How do we do this? We need to find the selection, right? So let's find selection. Selection. All right. Let's see here. Selection is a property of a page node. So here, as you can see, they give some example functions here. Page selection. And the selection is an array. So it's a read-only array. Read-only means that you can't modify contents of this array. You can only copy the whole array or replace the whole array with a different thing, but you can't change objects inside of it. So scene node. Scene node is just something here that represents any kind of node that can be placed on the canvas, like slices, frames, rectangles, booleans, instances, components, text nodes, etc. Everything is a scene node. Anything can be a scene node, yeah. So it doesn't include pages, it doesn't include the document itself. Now, how do we find the selection? That's kind of tricky, I would say, because I don't see it mentioned in the documentation anywhere. So I'll just tell you. I don't know how to find it, to be honest. Oh, we still have our syntax errors. You can clear the console easily from the menu here. Console is a great place to get started with plugins, to play with the API a bit. So you can find this current selection using the following line: Figma, which is an object that allows us to access everything inside of the Figma file. Figma dot Dot means that we try to access something inside of this object, a property of this object. Current page. Current page represents the page which the user is on, like page 1, for example. Right now we only have one page, so current page will be page 1. If I had two pages, current page would be either page 1 or page 2, depending on which page is currently open. And then from the current page we find the selection. As we saw earlier, selection is a property of a page element, and yeah, so selection. What right now, it's an empty array, as you can see. I pressed enter and it shows the empty array here. Now let's try to select something. Oops. Let's try to select something and try again. Figma current page selection. Now it shows that the Figma has, the selection has rectangle node inside of it. It's a rectangle node with ID 2.0, and if we open this rectangle node, we will see all properties this object contains. This is the rectangle node that's currently selected. Let's find the name here somewhere. Here it is. And it's a rectangle. Yeah, that's true. The name of this rectangle is rectangle. I'll call them something different, actually. I'll call them love. Just for fun. Because love is great. Now, let's go here. And in the code.js file, we can write the same thing. But this code doesn't do anything right now. By the way, I'm pressing up and down to go between commands, which I typed previously. So now, how do we access the name of this object? We need to do this. Selection 0, square brackets mean that we are accessing the item in the array. Selection is an array, and the first element of it has index of 0, second element has index of 1, third index of 3, etc. So an array is just a collection of elements ordered by index. First element has index of 0, so I'm getting the first element of the selection array in this line. Let's run this command. And as you can see, it shows just rectangle node. Before it showed, if I do this, it shows it in square brackets, and it actually shows us the 0 here. 0 is an index of this rectangle node here. If I select multiple rectangle nodes and run the same command again, as you can see, now we have all 5 rectangles, and their indexes are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the length of array is 5, because it contains 5 objects inside. So an array is just a collection of objects. We just need the first element, like this. Now, as we already saw, we need to access the property of this object called name. And now the name of this rectangle is love. Let's create a bunch more rectangles. Let's paint them a bit red, and these ones will be something like blue, or yeah, I think this will work. I will call these rectangles hate. This will be our test file where we will be testing if the plugin works. Yeah. So now we have Figma current page selection name, but we need to store it somewhere so we can check other objects if they have the same name or not. We do this by a very simple thing. We do this by storing it in a variable, I'm sorry. I'll call this variable name. Variables are created with the var or let keyword. I will use let. They have almost no differences, but let is a bit more stable, I would say. No, actually in the console it's better to use var. So I will use it here, and let I will use it in the plugin JavaScript file. Var name equals Figma current page selection 0 name. Now it's stored in this variable. We can access it by the name. Right now the name of this variable is name. And the name is love. Yeah. Now is a different part. We need to find all objects inside of this file which have this name. And to do that, we will use findAll method. You can find this method here, find, and you will see findAll. Because we are looking through the whole file, we need to find all objects inside of this file. It says this method, it's a method, as you can see here with the brackets. It searches this entire subtree, this node's children. Thanks, Alex. Yes, that's exactly the line we are going to write. Yeah. So findAll is a method which returns all nodes for which callback returns true. Callback in this case is another method. So this is a little bit of a complicated function which we are going to write. FindAll is a method which accepts callback parameter. For some reason it's optional. Oh, I think because you can find all just without any parameters. It accepts callback as a parameter, and the callback is another method, as you can see here, which returns a boolean and accepts a node. So let's break this down a little bit. So since callback is a function, let's first write the callback. It should return boolean. Boolean is a true or false, nothing else. So let's write a function. Function callback. I'll call it callback1 for now. No, I will call it the callback. This function basically checks if the node corresponds to if some condition is true for this node. That's why it returns a boolean. So what we can do is write is call it something like is same name, right? Is same name. So this function will check if node which will pass to it has the same name, and the name we are already storing here as a variable. No, it should return a boolean. So what is a boolean? Boolean is a result of a condition. So to do it, we need to return first, and then we need to write some condition. in this case, this condition will be to check if node name is the same as the name variable which we saved previously. So this sign means that we are basically checking if it's the same thing or not. It's a condition. It's not this. This is the assignment operator. It means that node name now will be name. But if we write 3 equal signs, it checks if node name is the same as name, which we stored here. Now, so far, so good. We have a callback. It returns a boolean. It accepts a node, which is important. Node is any scene node, which we described what it is previously. Now callback. We need to pass this callback into findAll function. FindAll is a function on any node which has children. So for example, find Figma current page, find all. So this is a great example. It actually does everything we need right now. So I'll just write this here. Write this in the console. Figma current page. As we remember previously, we described that current page is the page which the user is on. Current page. Find all is a method, so we write brackets here, and we need to pass this callback here. We just write is same name. Let's check. Wow, it returned an array of all rectangle nodes which have the same name. If we check here, name is love. Brilliant! Now we need to copy all of this into our plugin. By the way, this array, it would be good to save it into some variable. Let's go here and write what we have here. We have name. I'll just copy and paste it. We have a function. And we have this line which finds all objects with the same name. Brilliant! We can even simplify this a bit, but I will not do this right now. So this is just full code to make it super easy and not very confusing. So the simplest syntax I could use, a variable called what? Nodes. I'll call it nodes. So if we remember correctly, nodes is now an array with all our rectangles which we found. It will be. Yeah, so let's just log it. Let's just see what it returns. Oops. Yeah, so this method allows you to print anything into console here. When I launch the plugin, you will see it. Let's go and launch the plugin. Object selected. So yeah, here it printed all the rectangle nodes, this whole array. Now we need to do something with this array. We need to select it. We need to select all of these objects. Very simple stuff. How do we do this? If we remember, yeah, so I already told you that Figma current page selection. The selection is an array. It's a read-only array, actually. Let's find it again. Here, it's a read-only array. It means we can't modify its contents, but we can assign the new selection. So for instance, if I have a selection with one rectangle, let's show it here. Selection. Right now nothing is selected, right? So length is 0 and the array is empty. It shows just 2 square brackets. Now let's go to Figma and let's select something and run this line again. Now it contains one rectangle object. If we select 2, it contains two rectangle objects. It's an array with 2 elements. Yeah, you know that stuff. So what do we do with this array? We can easily replace it. So for instance, 2 objects are selected right now, and we write equals, just empty array. So right now it's equal to the array with 2 elements, and when we run this line, it will equal to an empty array. Let's do it now. Yeah, so now nothing is selected, because we made our selection equal to nothing, to an empty array. If we just write something like null here, it will throw an exception. It needs to have an array here. Now, what we have in our plugin is an array of nodes. And if we combine this knowledge, this powerful, impressive knowledge, we will be able to write this. What it does, it just tells Figma to select the nodes which we found. So let's go backwards on our code. No, let's go compile it in our head. Let's tell through everything that it does. It's a very helpful exercise when you're just starting out in code. You can just tell through everything, through every step that your code does. Basically, here we create a variable called name. We assign this variable to Figma current page selection, which is Figma is an object. It contains current page object, which contains selection array. We find the first element in this array and we take the name of this first element. So now the name contains the name of the first element in the selection array in the current page of the Figma object. Then we create a function. This function checks and returns a boolean of any node you pass into this function as an argument. It checks if the node name is equal to the name which we have here. Yeah, so this variable is very important. I will call it something different actually, so it's not confusing. I will call it saved name, and here we will have to change it as well. Saved name. So now it checks if the node name, the node is any node which we pass into this function. If this function returns true, then the findAll method will add this object to the array which it returns, and if this function returns false, then it will not add this object. So the findAll function returns an array, and it checks using this function. It basically calls this method like this, like it pastes some node into it, and it does it for every single node on the page. For every single rectangle, it goes through every object here, and even if I place some of them in the group or frame, it will go through the frame, then it will go inside and check every object inside. Now, yeah, here we have nodes variable. It contains an array of all found objects on our page, which have the same name as the saved name. And the current page selection will be set to the array which we found. Yeah, and then the plugin will just close using the Figma close plugin with the message objects selected. Now let's run this plugin. I'll run it interestingly, like through this menu. I usually use the shortcut, but for the demonstration I will run it through this menu. Now select all with same name. I run it, objects selected. Brilliant! It found all objects and added them to one array, and then changed our selection to this array. Brilliant! It's working. But now what will happen if we select two objects like this? What will it do? So it selects one, but what if I do this? It selects all of these objects. Nice! Now, if we choose something here, no, maybe if I choose it like this, it will, no. So it kind of randomly chooses between two objects. Now let's rename it to hate. Oops, I'm sorry. I accidentally pressed a button. I need to stop doing that. Yeah, so if I rename this object to something else like hate and run this plugin again, I'll select two objects. It selects all hate objects. So yeah, it's kind of random. So what I will do instead, oh, by the way, let's check this now. Yeah, it selects only the objects with the name love. So what I will do is just don't run the plugin at all if it contains, if the selection is longer than 1. So we need to add the condition here. And condition in JavaScript is written as if and then round brackets. In these brackets we write the condition. It should return a boolean, obviously. This condition can be something like this, but we need something different. If Figma current page selection length is more than 1. If what it does is it checks if the length of our selection array is more than 1. It needs to be strictly 1. So only one object can be selected. Oh, I can write it not equals to 1 actually. No, let's write it first as more than 1. So it will close the plugin. Figma close plugin, return. I will also write return here, because otherwise the lines could execute and it will break basically. So I'll just add return here for the good measure. Figma close plugin, and we need to write some text here. something like select one object. So this condition, if this condition is true, if the selection is longer than one, if more than one object is selected, then we will close the plugin and say, hey, you need to select only one object. Let's run the plugin and see. Illegal return statement. Okay, this makes sense because it's not in a function. To fix this, I will write a function. Main, like this. I will recommend you to write a function like this. Hey Aiden, nice to see you here. How are you? Yeah, so I will advise you to write the function main. I just call it main, you can call it whatever you want. And call it after that. So here we define the function and here we call it with the brackets. We don't pass any parameters in it, and if we did, it doesn't accept any, so it doesn't make sense. And here now we can write return. The return statement from will just close the function. It will not execute anything below this return line. Let's save the file and let's try again. Okay, object selected, it's fine, because we have only one object selected. Now, if we select two objects, it says select one object, so it breaks, yeah. And if nothing is selected, look at this, it will break. Yeah, plugin error, type error, value has no property. What value has no property? Yeah, this message is a mess. If you wanna, I would recommend you to read error messages very carefully and Google what they mean. So if here we have type error value has no property, and you will just Google this message here if something breaks in your plugin. There are usually a lot of answers what could be causing the issue, so I hope you will be able to figure this out. Also, you can use developer virtual machine. If you enable that, the error messages will be a bit better than this, but I'm not using it for simplicity. Yeah, so I'll enable it now actually. Use developer virtual machine. And now if we go to plugins again, you will see it now has a check mark, so developer virtual machine is enabled. And if we run the plugin again, nothing is selected. It's a bit better now. Yeah, so we can see many lines here. I'll zoom out a bit. No, I will just extend the window. Make it larger, yeah. Let's see what it does. Cannot read property name of undefined. So somewhere we are trying to read the property name. Here we are doing it for the first time. The property name. We are trying to read it, and it says of undefined, which means selection 0 is undefined, which means there is no first object in the array. So it's undefined, yeah, and since it's undefined, you can't read its property because it's basically nothing. You can't read something from nothing. So yeah, that's why it fails. Because nothing is selected and we are trying to access the first object here. So to fix this, I will copy this if statement. If it's not equal to 0, oops, not equal to 1, right? If we write this here, it will say like nothing is selected. right? Let's try it out. So what it will do is first check if an array is long. If it's too long, then it will close the plugin. And then it will check if an array... Oh, I can check if it... yeah, let's make it more explicit. Let's check if the length of the selection array is 0. Right now it's 0. I will not select anything, and let's run the plugin. Nothing is selected, right? So the selection length is 0, and this line runs. But we can make it simpler, so we don't have to write 2 if statements here, because basically we just need to check if an array contains one object. We don't care if it's longer or shorter. To do that, we will use a not equals condition. If it doesn't equal to 1, it's exclamation mark and 2 equal signs. Then we will remove this thing here. Yeah, so we will do it this way. And now if we select nothing, it still says select one object. If we select 2 objects, it says select one object. And if we select one object, it will select all objects with the same name. Super simple plugin. I think, yeah. So it's finished basically. Hooray! Congratulations! So again, I will just reiterate what we did. We made a plugin that selects all objects with the same name as the currently selected object. And yeah, we did it using JavaScript code. First we created a plugin using the Figma UI, then we checked the manifest if everything is all right here. By the way, let's check capitalization here. Edit, select all width, so only width is not capitalized. Here we can change the plugin name. So width we will leave lowercase, and this one will be capitalized like this. Now plugins, development, select all with same name. Hooray! Select one object. Let's run it again. Object selected. Brilliant. Do it here. If we do it here even, it will select all objects, yeah, with the same name. After that, we created a function main. No, we did it afterwards, but just to explain, we created a function main where we wrote all our plugin code. And then we launched this main function. Yeah. And what happens here is I will write some comments here. Writing comments is good. So here we are checking if only one object is selected. If not, then we close the plugin and return from the main function. We basically close the function, we stop executing it. Now, yeah, I'll write if, no, I will write what did I say again? I need to write and say things at the same time. Yeah, so we are checking if only one object is selected. Make sure. Make sure that only one object is selected. Save selected object name in the variable. What we did here. Then this one is a callback function from the for find all. This function returns if the name of an object matches the saved name. Yeah, then we created another variable where we saved all found objects in an array. Save an array of all objects with same name. I will write a better name for this. To do this, I'll press Command D to select all the same text in Sublime Text, and I will write here nodes with same name. Great. Let's expand it a bit. Writing good names is really important for writing good code. And then basically we select all found select all found objects. And then we close the plugin. That's basically it. Let's check if it's working again after our renaming and checking the code. Selects one object, it breaks. Great. Yeah, it works. It works very good. I'm surprised. Why didn't they add it? I want it here in the edit menu. I want this. I need this. This is really useful sometimes. Yeah, so I decided to build it because I wanted to make this function because it's convenient to be able to do this. Again, to show you what you need to build Figma plugins, you basically need to know the basics of programming on JavaScript. You don't need to know how to manipulate HTML. You don't need to know jQuery or any other libraries. You just need to know variables, loops, conditions, functions, arrays, and objects. That's it. These are all the very basic things about JavaScript. And yeah, this is actually very similar to writing in English. So we define a function, function called main. Then we add some characters here which make sure that this is the function and this is the curly bracket shows where the function body is. Yeah, and then if Figma current page selection, if the length of this selection is not equal to 1, then we close the plugin and return from the main function. Then we save the variable called saved name with the selection, with the first object from the selection, the name of the first object in the selection. And then we check if it has the same name for all objects on the canvas. And this method returns an array of all objects which have the same name. It checks it using this function which we wrote here. And this node with the same name will now be returned in the selection. Nice. So that's it. Some very simple stuff. I hope this stream tells you a bit about how to write Figma plugins. It helps you start learning JavaScript a little bit. It's very simple. It's a very small plugin, but you can start with writing simple, really like small scripts, and it will be great. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask now or later. Just message me, email me at nudes@gleb.sexy, or message me on Twitter, or I don't know, wherever you can. I'm everywhere. You can find me on Telegram, you can find me in Slack communities, friends of Figma community on Slack. Shout out to everyone. Yeah, it took 1 hour, but I was trying to explain everything. For me, it would take basically 1 minute to write it, so I decided I will share the knowledge and explain every single thing I could. Thank you, Aiden. Yes, it's a great email. I love it. Yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. A really small plugin, but I explained basically everything and showed the whole process and tried to get you into JavaScript a little bit. So thank you all for coming to the stream. Don't hesitate to jump into my DMs and ask me questions, even stupid questions. Actually, there are no stupid questions, so you can ask me anything. I will try to answer anything you want about Figma plugins or Figma in general. I don't know. Yeah. So thank you all for coming to the stream. I hope you are having a good day, and goodbye.